Right, where are we going next? Some esoteric stuff. We're going to dig deep again. Last week we had a piece of a Rudolf Steiner quote where he stated the following, quote, "With such a vaccine, you can easily make the etheric body loose in the physical body. Once the etheric body is detached, the relationship between the universe and the etheric body would become extremely unstable, and man would become an automaton. For the physical body of man must be polished on this earth by spiritual will," he said. Now, this has all the hallmarks of off-world genetic manipulation to me. How would they know of these things over 100 years ago, when we are told that medicine was in its infancy? We were told we barely knew how the anatomy works, even less so of how the brain works. And yet here is a man talking of detaching the silver cord, which connects to the various planes, via vaccines, can be removed. Does this make any sense whatsoever? Cutting the etheric cord in a child before age 7, or if the child does not gain the etheric cord by that time, renders that child, in their terms, retarded for the rest of its life. That is the importance of the etheric or the silver cord. A loss of that cord renders the spirit unable to travel. And if the spirit is trapped outside of the vessel, that person dies. And I believe this partially explains coma cases, where the person is suspended between the planes and the spirit only partially was able to get back into the vessel, rendering that patient still alive, but not awake, as a larger portion of the spirit is trapped between the physical, etheric, and astral planes. But why would a highly decorated scientist speak in this way? Why would they want to remove the etheric body connection? What purpose does it serve science? In our world of thinking, none. But their world operates very differently than ours, because the one thing that helps for host possession entities is an empty vessel. And there are many beings are or were trapped in the etheric and astral levels, unable to go back to source, and in suspended animation per se, just waiting for an opportunity to possess somebody else's vessel. So what were the conditions and modes of operations for these walk-ins to arrive in such vast numbers? I did this piece a while ago, and I thought it's worth remembering after what Rudolf Steiner said and was quoted last week. And here are some of the examples of the possession, the walk-ins, the avatars. Comes under various names. Alcohol. They call it spirits for a reason. Genie is a modern term for jinn. And who comes out of the bottle when it's rubbed? The genie or the jinn, which grants you 3 wishes, which is a spell cast. And it's not wishes, it's magic, which they perform. Only you pay the price of soul possession in most cases. Number 2, drugs, pot or other psychedelics. The Greek original meaning of that is breathe, life and soul, soul being the operative word. Psyche being of the mind, delix comes from the term delos, which means manifestation. So you have manifested something in your mind. The origin from the spirit realm, aka the astral. And I can hear many people going, no, it's pot's good and all this. But I'm sorry, this is exactly what those drugs do. And people wonder why people who take them change. Think about it. They've changed because in many cases it can be seen as not being them anymore. Now, some will argue it expands your consciousness. But have you considered it's not your consciousness that it has expanded? It is you and the entity that has expanded. Number 3, mushrooms. They call it magic mushrooms for a reason, and all magic comes with a price. Number 4, ayahuasca and other derivatives, described as hallucinogenic or hallucinogeny. That's where the word comes from. Hallucinogeny. Again, it calls in the spirits, all done by so-called shamans, which really means Shah man. Shah means time or era. So they are time men. Just not our time, but theirs. And the South Americans and many other tribal people were tricked into these ceremonies by rogue ET groups in the past here to engage a covenant or a contract they had with the demons or the jinns here, whereby they do their magic and dirty deeds, which comes with no karma, as they have no physical form. Jinns get to inhabit vessels and consume life force energy, both in here and also the astral realm. 5, tribal-based ceremonies involving circles, rhythmic beats to bring in their ancestors, except it wasn't their ancestors they were bringing in. 6, witchcraft, druidism, paganism, all involved in bringing in the demons, jinns, or dark spirits. Female witches congregated in a circle, often with a pentagram, which is on Solomon's ring, and called in the spirits. The circle they create is the portal, or the gateway to call them in, whilst the witches stand on the edge of the circle, all connected to each other by hand, to bind the circle and open the portal. Now, people may tell you they are light witches and fully believe it, but in reality, you've been fooled and seduced by the dark. 7, then we get people praying to the Lord, who is Anu, which is an energy harvester, which again feeds these entities, all part of the pact they made with the demons or the jinns. All external praying is harvesting your energy. 8, mediums and channelers, also call in the spirits, but they have no idea who or what they're calling in either. A lot of those messages came from the grey-based voice-to-head technology, pretending it's source or something else. Generally, people connected to you. Why? Because it's got an AI database is why. 9, we had alchemists who created potions that, again, depending on what was mixed, called on the spirits to manifest, but they only manifest into another body. Magic potions, or is it magi potions? Like earlier, genic, when removing the C, became genie, as in jinn. Magic without the C is magi, Now, the most famous Magi is Sinbad, who is the owner of 7 jinns, the genie in the bottle. Like alcohol is, the Arabic term al-kahul was the origin of the alcohol. Al means God, kahul means ghoul, which means spirit. And so it means the spirit god. Now, in the 17th century, alcohol was then described as a distilled and rectified spirit. A description of rectified spirits is also known as neutral spirits. Rectified alcohol or ethyl alcohol of agricultural origin is highly concentrated ethanol. And I wonder whether adding ethanol to our gas is another way to infect us. That has been purified by means of repeated distillation in a process called rectification. Now, in some countries, India, for example, no surprise, denatured alcohol or denatured rectified spirit may commonly be available as rectified spirit, but it is poisonous and ingestion can be fatal. Wine is a neutral spirit also. You may want to ask, you still want to consume that amount of drinks? 10. The Native Americans use a term called Wetiko for a different type of walk-in. Wetiko means solely for the self, but can only host on people who exhibit similar traits for greed, selfishness, and service to self and excess. 11. And we had people at a later date to sell their soul out for fame, wealth, and titles, oblivious to the real value of what they're giving away. Selling your soul is not metaphorical, it is a literal selling of your soul and life force energy, which is why so many famous people look blank, vacant, act strange, appear aloof, never seem happy, life filled with drama to keep them and the walk-ins occupied. And it's all theatre and fakery. 12. Indian spiritual practices like Kundalini and Tantric practices is another way of host possession. 13. Sex is another way of infecting a host, and the most prevalent form of it is sodomy, a common theme for the Cohen priests with boy parishioners, and now you know why. 14. Then we have the practice of yoga. That is also an avenue for host possession, which can be averted by shielding prayer, a practice that is oblivious to the various yoga teachers and experts. I hope that helped you all. Golems is the next. Made famous in the movies. But what are golems? Well, they say they are artificial beings that are used as a slave force. Is an animated anthropomorphic being that is created entirely from inanimate matter, usually clay or mud. Just like the gingerbread man, whose earliest origins of that cookie appear to have started in Egypt. Now, the description of the golem, which is the Hebrew and Quran version of how man is alleged to have started, and here is taken from one description of it. This is how Adam was created from the earth, i.e. from its dust, which was then mixed with water to form mud, which then became black, stinking mud. And this dust was created from earth, which is partly sand, and when it's mixed it becomes sounding clay, like the clay of pottery. So anthropomorphism is the attribution of human traits, emotions, or intentions to non-human entities. In religion and mythology, anthropomorphism is the perception of a divine being or beings in human form, or the recognition of human qualities in these beings. In science fiction, an artificially intelligent computer or robot, even though it has not been programmed with human emotions, can spontaneously experience those emotions anyway. And for an example, Agent Smith in The Matrix was influenced by disgust towards humanity, it was said. And this is an example of anthropomorphism. In reality, while an artificial intelligence could perhaps be deliberately programmed with human emotions or could develop something similar to an emotion as a means to an ultimate goal, if it's useful to do so, it would not spontaneously develop human emotions for no purpose whatsoever, as portrayed in fiction. So where did the term Golem come from? In modern Hebrew, Golem is used to mean dumb or helpless. Golem passed into Yiddish as Golem to mean someone who is lethargic or beneath a stupor. And the oldest stories of Golem date to early Judaism in the Talmud. Sanhedrin 38b. Adam was initially created as a golem when his dust was kneaded into a shapeless husk. Like Adam, all golems are created from mud by those close to divinity, but no anthropogenic golem is fully human, they state. Golem became Goyim, and the elite Jewish belief that we're not real humans and only dumb animals was adopted as their mantra. A little bit of etymology that will lead us into another expose of this ilk. People often ask me and each other, how do you cope? Well, my answer now would be, which cope are you referring to? Because cope came from the word kupen, which means to quarrel, to come to blows, deliver blows, or engage in combat. Not quite the same, is it? The term actor, late 14th century, an overseer, guardian, steward, from the Latin actor, an agent or doer, a driver of sheep. In law, accuser, plaintiff. Also theatrical player, orator. But these are fairly interesting descriptions. A driver of sheep was an actor. The term Aaron is a masculine name, and in the Old Testament was the brother of Moses, from the Hebrew Aaron, which is said to be probably of Egyptian origin, which is more proof that these Israelis were Egyptian. Abracadabra, the magical formula, 1690s, from Latin and late Greek. Abraxas, Kabbalistic or Gnostic name for the supreme God, and thus a word of power. And it was written out in a triangle shape and worn around the neck to ward off sickness. But a few things come from that. The mention of the Abraxas, who are a humanoid group worse than the Draco, in many ways, as covered in the Jupiter Ascending movie. But abracadabra is a spellcast. And yet, curiously, many who believe in the divinity of the Gnostic texts, they think a spellcast name is a name for the supreme God. Really? So what comes up when we add the word abraxas? Kabbalistic word associated with the followers of Basilides the Gnostic in 1680s, of uncertain origin and with many elaborate explanations, it said, and also used in reference to the type of Gnostic amulet featuring a carved gem depicting a monstrous figure and obscure words, or words connected to Hebrew or Egyptian religion. The abraxas connected to the Hebrew or Egyptian religion. Well, I never. Yep, they are the religion with their Anunnaki sidekicks is why. So let's go into the Anunnaki, shall we? The Siakar species, Ciakar, are rarely covered in alt media circles, but they are considered the royal caste amongst the reptilian races. Draconian reptilians physically resemble other reptilians, and some may have horned skulls. They are also larger, stronger, and more athletic than their lesser cousins, and they do have winged appendages, which has been mistaken for angels in the past, as their highest royal caste is white. And they're extremely clairvoyant and also extremely clever and also extremely sinister. And their advanced skill sets in genetics and cybernetics gives them the ability to control the minds of others and also create hybrid life forms to serve the reptilian cause, which is the domination of other races. Now, some of the Greys races in particular are these hybrid life forms, more mechanical than biological, but skilled in genetics and cybernetics should raise the pondering levels. And they're also feared for their unparalleled technology, most of which was stolen from us. Extreme intelligence and highly developed communication skills, all of which are usually applied to the detriment of other races. They have colonized many planets through violence and infiltration activities, and some believe that they are responsible for infiltrating Earth's governments in order to use its institutions against itself and aim to eventually dominate Earth completely. They view humans as vastly inferior race, as slaves and also prey. Siakar draconian reptilians, or simply Siakars, are reputedly one of the most powerful, respected and ancient of the reptilian races and are descendant from royalty. Yes, the royal bloodline is prevalent on this planet. Is it one and the same? Other lesser reptilians are believed in turn to be descended from the Siakars, and they are much larger and more powerful than their cousins. Some have wings on their back, which is why they were mistaken for angels, which is a skeletal structure comprising multiple spinal columns, yellowish reptilian eyes, dark green or brown, thick, impenetrable and scaly skin. And some of them allegedly also have two hearts. Clearly they don't use them. That's why when you're dealing with these beings, you have to remove the head. It's the only way to get rid of them. Through human eyes, these creatures are truly monsters ranging up to 30 feet in height and several thousand pounds in weight, and they may live for many thousands of years also. And the question that has been asked in the past is, could Siakars have been the mythical dragons in ancient human folklore? It's very, very possible. Now, Siakars are ruled through a monarchy and have great reverence for their queens. And they are thought to have first come to Earth hundreds of thousands of years ago, which is correct. And Siakars allegedly eat their prey, sometimes humans, alive, which is correct. And they get a rush from the dying throes of their victims. Now, this is similar in Earth terms to the spirit cooking and adrenochrome discussed on the internet more recently. And they have a powerful military and control many other races throughout the galaxy, or did, such as the Zeta Grey Reticulans, who do much of the dirty work for the Siakars, and that is correct, the Greys do most of the trouble, such as human abductions throughout galactic history. Now, the Siakars have a common enemy, the Lyrans, and also most other human races. And they've been battling, or we've been battling, for many, many millions of years. But as with most reptilians, Siakars allegedly continue to this day to seek the enslavement of the human race, and may even be operating from bases deep within the Earth's underground. Dumps. And no, they haven't been destroyed yet. And their fearsome physical attributes and extreme telepathic capabilities, which is why sometimes you don't remember your dreams, make them a fairly formidable enemy, but not as formidable as we are. Remember that. And here is a reminder. Right, final piece tonight. The intel tonight was fairly positive. Some of the other pieces, warning of what they're up to, kind of sickens you, the levels of thinking and stupidity and greed. But we're still in the game, a game that we should have not been part of. And no matter what they do, they cannot defeat the will of the people. No fear from those clowns. It's them who is in fear. This is why they're organising lockdowns and fact checkers and all kinds of other stupidity. Because they're losing the plot and the narrative. We will have at least 2 parts review coming up soon. I haven't decided on the date, so keep that in mind. We're not going to do a show next Thursday, with it being New Year's Eve. May do one Wednesday, which may be the review, because there is 2 fairly explosive shows from Russia with Love +4 and +5 ready to roll, that will leave you in no uncertain terms as to the proof of THI and why the TPC was set up in the way it was. So look forward to them in the new year. I've finished review 1, mainly through review 2, and it may go into a shortened review 3. maybe I can try and squeeze it in, we'll see. And it just leaves me on this Christmas Eve, Christmas Day for some of you, to wish you all a happy Christmas holiday, a joyous time for children all over the world, some not so fortunate, and for some adults who like to overindulge at times. But we also have to be aware that traditionally Christmas can also be a very sad time of the year. One of our members this week lost his mother, and we send condolences to him. And the problem with Christmas and that period is that it sows much discord within families. But don't lower your frequency or your energy to pacify others, whether it's family or not. Don't. This Christmas is perhaps more sobering one this year than previous years, but it's also a chance to reflect on the massive progress you have all made this year in terms of knowledge, understanding, and being able to see in public all of what was previously hidden. It's a mad world in their world, but it doesn't have to be in your world. Observe, not absorb. You cannot defeat your demons if you still enjoy their company, internal and external. Cast them out. In their world, they are plunging people into a technocratic, surveillance-led fascist state being ran and supported and pushed by pedophiles and psychopaths with poor math skills and also an inability to tell the truth. People will ask, when is the lockdown ending? Will it be after the vaccine? That is about as likely as a £300 Santa Claus coming down a 12 by 12 inch chimney pot into an open fire. These lockdowns will only end when the people finally realise they are not meant to end. Our compliance is how they win. Non-compliance is how we win. Happy Christmas to you all, and I'll see you all next week. Bye for now.